Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here once again, and damn it, the mouse keeps on... Sorry, I have this episode up, and I have the mouse sitting on the episode where I want to look at the little picture hovering above the hand, and every time I stop moving it'll fade away and it'll disappear, and it's like I am here today because I didn't write any notes today for this episode. I didn't really see the purpose when I could just go through it, because there really wasn't as much to talk about. I guess maybe when I talk through it, there might be some more interesting revelations, but the more interesting stuff I found was behind the scenes, and we will talk about that last. So obviously, I am here today to talk about Sharon's Man From U.N.C.L.E. episode, which is Season 1, Episode 28, The Girls from Nazarene Affair. And the title is a play on some World War II movie and book about the guns from Nazarene Affair or something. So, right off the bat, just with the title alone, in fact, I want to make sure that I get that right. Right off the bat, though, okay, yeah, the guns of Nazarene. And they changed the title to The Girls of Nazarene. And when you think about that, they're making the emphasis not on a girl, not on the main villain of the episode, but the girls. Because the recurring theme in the episode is to not trust blondes. Because they have this group of blondes, and it's pretty cool, actually. It's fun, it's stylish, it's creative. You have this group of blonde women, and they're all evil, and they're all trying to get this formula that speeds up the healing process, and they are going up against these two agents from U.N.C.L.E, and they also want the formula. But obviously you have right there telling you that the emphasis is about the girls. And that's important, obviously, for reasons that I don't even have to state. So this episode started off with something that I didn't even think about until halfway through. So the first scene, you have two blonde women, and one of them is the main villain. She is, I'm just going to call her Thrush, I'll just call her Thrush. Okay, so I will say this too, I was a little bit confused watching the episode. It took me a little bit to kind of process this little story here, because at first, they really throw you right into things, and they don't even have any part at the beginning where it's like, okay, gentlemen, you're going on this mission. You will have to do this at this place and meet this person. No, you just get thrown right into things. And I guess after watching all these crappy modern movies and shows where they spoon feed you everything, and there's so much explanation that's BS before the action happens, because there's so little action that, I think I was a little surprised and taken back that, the agents are just, they're in the background. The opening scene, you have these girls, and they do this whole thing with this flower man, and the agents, they're pulling up on the hotel themselves. So I thought that was really cool, actually, and that was one of the things that I loved about the episode, was that the agents were they were already there. You're thrown right into things. I don't know if every episode is like that, because this is the only episode of the show that I've ever seen. I never saw the movie either, because I didn't really want to watch a movie with Armie Hammer. Not because of like the obvious reasons, but because I'm not a fan of him. Like, just he has like the most boring white bread look, and I really don't want to watch movies with him in it. Like, even before I found out he was a fucking creepy cannibal, like I just didn't want to watch his movies in general. And I gotta say too, like, just right off the bat with the movie, the casting of the movie, I think both characters were miscast. I think that instead of blaming the fact that people didn't really want to go see it because they didn't know anything about it or anything, I think the big thing to blame would be the casting, because both Henry Cavill and Armie Hammer are not right for these roles at all. I mean, Napoleon, he's the main character. He is really cool. He's suave. But he's small. He's not a beefy Superman-looking guy like Henry Cavill. He is small, and he's average. Like, he looks like an everyman. And then the other guy, he's a very, very unique looking actor, and he's a shrimp. He's a fucking shrimp. He's not Armie Hammer, 7 foot tall, wide shoulders. Like, he's this little guy who looks like he could pass off as a European alien. Like, an alien that has a European voice or something. I don't know. They are not right for the roles. So I'll just say that too. Like, if you guys think about watching the movie, I'd probably say to stay away from it, because the casting was trash based off of this episode. So these girls pull up in this race car, and we will talk about the race car later, because I wasn't even thinking about the fucking race car at all in terms of hints and clues and synchronicities and all that type of stuff. But I think that you guys could probably figure that out just from listening right now, the connection that would have. So they meet with this flower guy, and they kind of pretend like they want to take a picture of him, and then they give him a corsage or something, and it poisons him. And I think then they take him away to this clinic, and they inject the formula into him, and he dies or something, or he died already. I can't remember really. I mean, as I said, it was a little confusing. The story was kind of it wasn't the greatest story. It wasn't the best written story. I still liked it though. Spoiler alert. Like, I know that I'm only like 2 minutes into the episode, and basically I'm probably not going to go through the whole plot scene by scene, because there's a lot of stuff that, it isn't really worth talking about. One of the main things, though, is that there's this reoccurring thing where the two agents keep on breaking into this random woman's hotel room, and it's all because their secret stuff happened up there, and the flower man saw the secret stuff or something. Like, I swear, like, I'm trying here. Like, it kind of makes me look bad that I didn't really get what was going on or something, but I don't know, maybe I was distracted. Like, the first half of this episode just went right through me, though. Like, I was really having a hard time. Like, I knew what was going on, like, in the moments. Like, these guys break into her hotel room, they're investigating it, they find these oil stains and things, and they're investigating this race car and the people who own it, and that whole sequence was great. It was really funny, and I think that the first thing that I noticed about the show in general is that these agents, they're not like secretive, like cold, like agents that you aren't able to identify with. They're very, very average and normal, and they're so fun, and they're so relatable, and just really, really likable. And I think that really helps with the show, because in a lot of these procedural shows, the characters are just so boring and bland and dull, and they're cold, and you feel like you don't even know them because they're just cardboard cutouts. And these two characters, they are a fantastic duo. I mean, probably one of the best duos of all time, which there are a lot of great duos in movie and TV show history, and these guys would definitely be up there with those guys. So then they go to this garage and they meet with the name. What's her name? Isn't it Nazarene? Yeah, they named her Nazarene as well. She was a pretty great actress. I mean, to be honest, I thought that she was kind of the highlight of the episode, just because she was so funny and she was so like outrageously like insane. Like, and I'm not going to talk about specifically what I mean by that right now, but she tells them to leave and she shoos them off, and they watch these girls enter, these other blonde girls in the cult. It's like a little agent cult, the bad girls cult group, team of agents of bad blonde, the bad blonde agents team. So they're all in this garage, and Sharon looked great this episode. I mean, I really thought that she looked exactly like she did in Eye of the Devil, which was interesting because I think that came pretty shortly after this. I mean, you had Beverly Hillbillies, and then Eye of the Devil was right after that, and she looks like she walked off the set of Eye of the Devil. Like, if I put a side-by-side up of her in this and Eye of the Devil, you guys would agree. And there were a lot of shots in the episode where you could tell that they were trying to emphasize her, and they were trying to show off her when they should be, just picturing the story as it's told. And I think they were really trying to put her out there for the world to see. And there is another false flag event. It's kind of a false flag event where it's not what it seems, and it's another sacrifice as well. So this episode is another story where it all centers around a sacrifice, and people might pretend like it's not a sacrifice, and they might say, well, Marco, a sacrifice is where somebody volunteers to get killed. Yeah. Like, no. Let's talk about it. Well, actually, we can't, because that'll spoil. I'm going through the episode, and that'll spoil it for you people who like to watch stuff without watching the episodes first, which I'm not going to say anything else about that. But the funniest thing is that the main villain, the leader, the doctor woman, she takes out this big fucking machine gun and she starts shooting the shit out of the Nazarene girl. And Sharon is inside the race car right next to her as she's being shot. And then what's really hilarious is that the agents start tapping on the windows. Like this bitch has a machine gun, and they're standing in front of these windows, and they just straight up tap on the windows, and obviously she starts shooting at them. But then the weirdest thing happens because everyone disappears. There's no bullet shells or anything. There's no blood. There's no anything. There's no sign of what happened at all. And that was weird. That was like a fucking scene straight out of Scooby-Doo if I've ever seen it. So, and I'm just kind of watching it as the scene goes on. Like, yeah, this whole shot with her entering the race car, they took like 30 seconds just to have her like walk over, turn off the lights, and get in the car. And the other girl, she gets in her car in like the background. And so, like, yeah, that's pretty strange. And obviously, I'm just talking about it in terms of storyboarding this story out. The way that they shot it, they definitely wanted to show her for this scene. Anyways, so and then they show her driving away. They don't even show the other girls entering the other car or anything, like, at all. They just show Sharon driving away in the race car. So, like, that whole part, that was obvious right there. Then they get back to the hotel, and they break into that woman's room again. This random woman's room, where I guess secret stuff went on there. And they come up with this plan, and they kind of bribe her. And another thing that I loved about the show, by the way, is that it has like a 4-act structure where they'll have a title card, they'll have Act 1, Act 2, and then they'll have the title of that act. I think that's cool. I think it's fun, and it really worked well with the show. So they come up with a plan to give her $25,000, and they tell her she can go around spending it as much as she wants, as long as she doesn't interact with any blondes. And basically what they're trying to do is they're also trying to pull off this sort of false story going on where, it looks like she is the one who has the formula, at this healing formula, and she knows how to make it or something, and it looks like she sold it, and she's spending all the money that she sold her formula with. And she's just like this random person, but I gotta be honest too. Oh, wait a second, they went to the clinic first. Well, we'll have to talk about that. So, before we get to the clinic though, this main character who they drop in on her hotel room all the time, I really had a hard time believing that she was a school teacher, because they briefly talk about her personal history when they have to prove to her that they're agents, and they kind of go through her background, and they say like she's a school teacher or something, and she doesn't look anything like a school teacher. She looks like an agent. She looks like, I honestly thought there would be a cliche twist where she was a bad guy too or something, or maybe she was the real bad guy, or I don't know, maybe she was trying to make money, something, I don't know. Like, so I was really surprised that she never turned evil. And I think though that it was another attempt at subversion in some way. Like, another thing that, she didn't look like a school teacher, but she was a school teacher type of thing. Just like with, the main theme of the episode, the story, is that you have these blonde women and they're evil. And you think back then, blonde women, blonde hair is associated with I don't know how to sound like I'm trying to say it without sounding like a what, like a bad guy. Let's just say a a bad guy from World War II. I wonder who the bad guys were in World War II. Blonde hair has always been associated with good women, with nice women, with generous women, and and it's pretty interesting. This is 1964. I want to say, when was it? April 12th, 1965. And it's pretty interesting that they have this story where it's all about blondes being evil. These blonde women being like this little group of terrorists, practically. I mean, they're pretty evil. They kill people, they steal, they're thieves. They're pretty bad. They're pretty evil. And I think that if I had to guess, the main message would be, last time we sort of, it was a weird transition from Mr. Ed to the Americanization of Emily to this, where it kind of feels like now she was in the club, like now she was on their team. She's on the evil team. She's in the group of agents. That it's a very simple message. It's a very simple thing to get across, but that's really what I got from the episode, unfortunately. And I think that it's pretty creepy to watch. Once again, you watch all these things and you kind of have to laugh about it because there's nothing that, you can do about it anymore. But it's kind of creepy to, look at this and be like, they're kind of, showing what's going on in real life on a show, in a movie. It's pretty weird. So they go to this clinic where the villains are. And they find Nazarene, and she is recovering. And she is fine. She doesn't have any wounds at all. She was supposedly shot, but she is just fine. And it's really funny, too, because there are many times in this episode where the women in the episode go up to Napoleon, the main character, and they just start strangling him, and they just start shaking him up and down, over and over and over again. He gets physically abused this episode. And that's another thing. These are not perfect characters. They make mistakes like everybody else. They don't always win. They don't always catch the bad guy. And they take physical abuse. They're so unlike the characters of modern cinema, like these shitty ass female characters, like the ones in Ant-Man Part 3, for example. I mean, this was just so much better than Ant-Man 3. I kind of wish that for a palate cleanser I watched this right after I watched that, because it would have felt so good, even better than it did. And another thing too is that I will say, in terms of Sharon's acting, this is probably her worst acting that I've seen so far, which I'll cut her some slack and just say, fuck it. She didn't have anything to do anyway. I mean, it was a little tiny role where she's just there the whole episode, standing there with a glare. And she has 3 lines in the whole episode, and she barely has anything to do. So it's I'm not gonna say anything about that. I'm not gonna I'm not gonna penalize her for that. One of the weird things in this episode that I was kind of I wondered if it was a specific direction that the director gave, or it was in the script, or what. But when the Napoleon comes back to the hotel to talk to Ilya, which I think that's his name, he says that Nazarene is still alive and kicking. And when he says kicking, he does like a 3-finger gesture at his stomach. And it's like when he says kicking, he's like tapping his stomach. And to me, it was either to, and it was literally him holding, like purposefully holding three fingers, and then, like tapping his stomach in a strange way. And it was either to show that, like, oh, that was where the bullets shot her, I guess. But in my opinion, I kind of felt like it's like, the first thing that I thought of was baby kicking. Because that's when he did it. He didn't tap his stomach when he said alive. He tapped his stomach when he said kicking. And it was a really weird little thing that happened. And, I don't know if I'm overanalyzing or what, but I am just going with what I feel. What I feel is off, and what I feel is it sticks out from the show and whatever else I'm watching. So, I'm not trying to suggest that was some sort of a signaling or something, but it was strange. I mean, I've never seen anyone else do that before in history. I mean, have you guys ever seen somebody point 3 fingers at their stomach and then tap it a couple of times? I mean, it was a very weird way of showing that she was still alive. Like, have you ever seen anyone do that in general? Like, have you ever seen anyone do that if, like, like they tap their stomach, unless it's like they have a stomach ache? Like, it was really weird. Like, I'm not trying to suggest anything, though. I'm just, I thought that was off. And I was trying to keep an eye out for other things like that in the episode, but it was really tough because at the same time I was trying to understand what was going on. I just did not get it. I just did not get it until like the second half. So the other funny part is that in the whole time that they were talking to this school teacher woman about their little bribe, the blonde women, or one blonde woman, they don't specify which one it was. They don't show which one it was. She was planting booby traps and listening devices in their hotel room. And they're just like, oh, whatever. Just let her do that. Who cares? And then they go upstairs to check, and they're feeling around, and I love that whole sequence where they're talking, and it's another sequence, where they're acting. They're putting on a show. They're putting on a show to fool these villains, and at the same time they're checking for these booby traps. And it's a really funny little scene because it ends with they're like, we want to go to sleep now and get some good night's sleep, and then the one place where they didn't check for booby traps has booby traps, and they have little needles on the insides of the pillows with poison, the same poison that killed the flower man at the beginning of the episode. So yeah, the whole reason why they had that thing with that woman being shot was because they used the formula on her, and they were trying to determine if it worked. And the doctor at the clinic, he copied it for this doctor woman. So then you had another scene where one of the blonde women now had a black wig on her head, and she, you could tell by the way that she was blonde. I mean, I didn't even have to see that reveal at the end where she pulled off the blonde wig. Like, you could tell that it was a wig, and but yeah, what happened was the school teacher purchased like a cottage, or she wanted to look at a cottage, and the real estate woman was her, and so they did that little thing. And then of course she is told that she has to come with Ilya with all these giant gifts that she bought, these boxes. I don't even think there's anything in those boxes. They have them like tied together with like ribbons and things. I don't even think they got any prop wardrobe to put into those boxes. So he tells her he has to take her to the Alps, and he takes her to this cottage that he prepared for her to keep her safe, since they were just using her to try to make it look like she had the formula and she sold it. And so then they'd hide her, and then they would entrap those other girls and get the formula. That was the plan. And of course, it goes awry when they go to this cottage. And by the way, I really love the camera work this episode. You know, I know that earlier on I was talking about the purposeful camera work of certain shots, but I love the shots in this episode. Like, there were certain shots where they kind of had this handheld quality to it, which was really cool. Like, I really loved, and I didn't expect that in this 1960s show that they'd have this kind of shaky handheld vibe to it. It was pretty cool. I mean, usually in these older shows and movies, the camera's always stationary and it's always just static and just sitting there like boring. But in this, you know, they have a couple of times where they do some fun things with the camera. But it was all trap. It was all trap all along. And and the blondes are there. Let's see. And that starts Battle of the Blondes, Act 3. The only blonde that isn't there is Sharon. So the other two blondes pick up Ilya and they throw him down a hole. And then they throw a bucket on top of him in the hole. It's a well. It's not just a hole, it's a well. But anyways. Oh, wait a second. Sharon was there. But they didn't show her until when they were all leaving in the car. See, I'm trying to find things that are there that aren't there sometimes. But, you know, I'm just trying to look as far as I can into this episode. So what was funny was the Nazarene girl, the effects of the formula are still happening to her, and and she feels this burning sensation in her body. And so she's doing like constant exercise to see like, can she recover from this strenuous exercise? And it becomes really, really hilarious because she's, you know, riding a bicycle. She's doing these wall push-ups just over and over and over again. Like, just for hours and hours and hours. It's really hilarious, actually. And she has really perfect you-know-whats. I mean, I know I talked in the other video about... well, I'm not going to talk anymore about that. She had nice oranges. I'll just say that. Like, they're nice Nazarene oranges. So Napoleon, he infiltrates this whole clinic and he talks to the doctor about what happened, and they have this whole funny thing where he is hiding behind a mattress. And another reason why I said that Sharon looked like she did in Eye of the Devil is because they have a similar wardrobe to Eye of the Devil, where she's wearing this long-sleeved sweater. The only difference would be in this show, she's got leggings on, which look really, really good. And then in Eye of the Devil, she has like jeans on or something. But I thought it was interesting that her appearance in this movie was so similar to that movie, since in that movie it was similar with the message that they were trying to show about her at the time. So, yeah. Then he ends up getting caught, though, And I'm just trying, and so this is where a big flub happened by Sharon. So the girls grab onto him, and Nazarene, she kind of pulls him back and thrusts him to the ground, putting him in a chokehold. And when she does that, it's really funny because Sharon moves back after she did this horrible karate chop to take his gun, which that was hilarious. She did like this karate chop action, and then she leaps out of the way because she was genuinely scared in real life about them getting her or something. Like, it's really funny. You can see the look on her face. She genuinely jumped and leaped backward, and then she smiled a little bit, and she had some trouble this episode with smiling. And then they cut to another shot where she's back to normal. So yeah, the formula is still working. They're still testing the effects. And the main thing is just this villain wants to get the formula and have it and sell it or give it to her boss or whatever. And that's another thing I had trouble figuring out, was that they acted like this was a villain they dealt with before, and they kept on saying the name Thrush, and I couldn't tell if this girl was Thrush, the main villain of this episode, or that she was working for Thrush, who was the main villain of the series. So that's something that I had a little bit of trouble. And it is also hilarious because Ilya, he manages to climb out of this well in like 2 seconds. And I mean, he wakes up and then he climbs out of there like pretty easily. He thrusts himself upwards, and it can only be... Oh wait, no, he falls down once. It can only be described, though, as like a scene out of The Dark Knight Rises, like when Batman is climbing out of the hole. It's pretty similar to that. So then it's really funny. They have Agent Napoleon, and he is tied up on this exercise bike, and he is just forced to exercise and exercise and exercise. And gosh, she has nice oranges. Like, I swear, they might be the greatest oranges I've ever seen. So anyways, now there's this whole rescue thing where they find out that the school teacher she did not have any formula or anything. And they tie her and Agent Napoleon up on these mattresses, and they are going to sink them in this pool. And it was, I think, probably the most disappointing thing about the episode was that it was kind of really easy to break them out of this pool trap scenario. And she's doing those push-ups again. Those wall push-ups. She's just constantly exercising. Yeah, Ilya comes to the rescue, and it doesn't even look like... I know that obviously they probably couldn't have him actually untie them, but if I think even if you're just casually watching, that you can tell that it's that they're not really breaking them out of there. So then what happens is, surprisingly, the Nazarene girl gets in the race car with the doctor, and she drives off in like a state of manic, of like a frenzy, this mentally ill state where she's lost her marbles, basically. And then the agents get away, and there's this really cool car chase. I really loved I loved in general how the episode had a lot of different things go on throughout it. It wasn't just stuck at the same 4 locations the whole episode, because I was really worried as soon as I saw this hotel location I know in a lot of other shows like this, they would be really cheap and they just have them stay at this hotel the whole episode. And so I was really glad that they went all over the place with this episode. I mean, they went to the quote-unquote Alps, for God's sakes. But then that's when the other interesting thing came. And I think that it is worth pointing out. So they had a really weird / interesting framing of a certain shot. So there's this shot where they're going around this corner down the hill, and it's one race car being chased by another race car. I mean, they're really cool cars. It was a really, really cool sequence, by the way. You can see this light pole and the shadow. It's a beautiful, beautiful shot, by the way. The shadow is reflecting down onto the road, and it's in the sign of a cross. And it's worth pointing out, there's other electrical poles that you see throughout this sequence, but they never reflect the shape of a cross in the road. And I looked extra close because I was like, I hardly have anything to talk about. They showed Sharon quite a bit, and they had a little bit of symbolism here and there, but there's hardly anything really to talk about. But then I saw that cross, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make sure to try to figure out if there's any, and there's no other cross-shaped shadows in the road. And so there is some sort of importance there, symbolical importance, to showing that cross in the road. And then the race car goes back up the road, back past the cross. And Nazarene, she's very pissed off because she knows that the formula is making her feel ill. And then finally the agents catch up to her. Well, just one agent, Ilya and the school teacher. Oh wait, no, both agents. See, I'm having trouble here. They catch up and she crashes, and they see that she died. She died from the formula, this healing formula that supposedly speeds up the healing process. And the importance here is that it was indeed a sacrifice. And it's also worth pointing out, the hairstyle that they gave her was very similar to Sharon's. The girls in the group, they did not really share the same hairstyles except for Nazarene and Sharon. And the sacrifice being being this. You had this group of blonde agents working for evil, and one of them purposefully lets them kill her. I mean, they shot her up with a machine gun, and they immediately took her to this clinic, and then they shot her up with this formula. She wanted them to do that. It was a sacrifice that she did because she did eventually die. So by taking that formula, yes, that was a sacrifice. So I thought it's a very interesting way to look at the act of sacrifice. And of course, it's another fucked up thing with those types of people where they like to pretend that things are what they aren't. Subversion of what's normal. So then they go back to the garage to confront the main villain, and immediately, once again, they had this weird thing where they're just showing Sharon and they're emphasizing her in this garage, and what happens is a door opens and let's see, the car enters first, but as soon as this car with the other bad guys enters, she goes right in, and they're focusing on her. And it's weird how the shot is framed, and it's a strange way to shoot this scene in comparison. Because I'm picturing what it would have looked like if you were to walk on the other side of the garage and to show the people coming in from that side. I think it could just be for the convenience of... I'm not going to say it like... It's tough to tell, though, because it really did not look... It was weird. It was off. And then comes a really clumsy fight scene, but, they did the best job that they could do. I mean, they don't really know how to fight very well, obviously. But there is this little cartoony action where he actually puts tires over both of them like a cartoon. And then the one of the other greatest parts of this episode is that the main villain, she was wearing a mask the whole time and a wig, so she was never blonde the whole episode. I thought that was very interesting as well. Another subversion. This whole episode told you to focus on blonde's bad, blonde's evil. And then at the end... But the weird thing, though, is that these women here, Sharon and this other girl, they keep on attacking Agent Napoleon even after their boss just left. And I think this is probably the worst part of the episode, too, because they have him pinned down on the hood of the car. I think is it the race car? No, it's just a regular car. They have him pinned down on the car, and they just cut away. They don't even show how he gets out of it, or how he talks them out of it, or anything. And I thought that was weird. I don't know why that was. See, it's like the story didn't even matter. It's like they thought that you would assume things, apparently. Like I do that sometimes when I write too, so, they think you'll assume things, I guess. And no, we won't for the most part. So then they talk about how will they ever know what this woman really looks like? I thought that was a really interesting concept with this character. It really surprised me because the whole episode I was like, this is just kind of a boring villain. But then that little twist at the end there, I liked. And I thought, I really like to watch the rest of the show because I would like to see if they ever catch her, if they ever catch this specific character. But apparently she never comes back. That would be another red flag. They said that they were not interested in having returning characters, And I thought that was unfortunate. I was excited. I was like, I want to go purchase that other episode right now. And then I will say the worst part of the episode, if the whole thing with not showing what happened with the two girls, including Sharon, if that wasn't bad enough, the ending of the episode is complete trash. Because the two guys, they just start having this like goofy back and forth where it's like a comedic sitcom ending, and they're just kind of toying around with each other, and then the school teacher, she gets in between them like she's refereeing a fight, and then that's the end of the episode. I thought that was very bizarre. It was such a weird ending to the episode, and the school teacher, she never returns too, which is pretty unfortunate. I don't know why they wouldn't have recurring characters. Returning characters. I don't know why. Why do I keep on saying recurring characters? So now that I've dissected the episode needlessly, like a, what do you call it, like a weirdo, let's just talk about, first off, the dead giveaway with this episode was the race car, because if you look at the picture that I drew and I showed it in the episode on the channel called The Evidence that accompanied the cursed brick video, this was the exact race car from the show. There were a couple of minor differences, obviously, but this was the exact race car that I saw in the dream. And, who knows about the coloring, but I thought that was very interesting. And at the start of the episode, the girl who is driving the race car is wearing sunglasses. And it is the only time in the whole episode where the person driving this race car was wearing sunglasses. I do not believe that it was her in particular, but still, it's very, very weird. And weird is like the number one word I say in these videos regarding her. Another thing is, I was really trying to intend to draw my elementary school parking lot, because that is where the dream took place. But it more so looks like the environment in the episode where the race car is driving. And so I thought that was interesting as well. So, again, you guys make of that what you will. And I am going to put a picture of that dream. I mean, this was a dream from May of last year. And I had not seen this episode until this year. Right now, today. February 21st, 2023. So now we should dissect the meanings of the behind the scenes stuff, which was much more interesting than the actual episode. So overall, if you just want to know what I think about the episode, I give it like a B or a B minus. I thought that the writing could have used some improvements. I had some trouble following along. This was the first episode of the show I ever saw, and I just thought about, what if I were back then and I was just in a room and I turned on the show. I would be kind of lost a little bit for a while. I really had to think about it to get into to get into liking the episode and everything, but still, I would definitely watch more episodes of the show. It is the 29th episode of the show in terms of how the episodes are ranked on IMDb. So people really like this episode. They think it's one of the better ones of the show, which I hope not, honestly. Like, I kind of think of it, it's a mid-tier episode. So is there anything there? Anything there? Anything there? Another subversion, obviously, would have been that the blondes, they kind of pretended like they were working at the clinic. So Sharon is listed as therapist because they're all kind of disguised in the clinic. Now let's move on. Now first, one of the big red flags is that the person who wrote the story of this episode, this is the only episode that he ever did the story for. So that should tell you right there. Red flag. Because he was sent there, he had to come up with a story. He was sent there to do that. Or I don't know the whole story behind the scenes, but just the fact that this is his only episode of the show, his only episode, that is telling. And then let's talk about, just briefly, the actress who played the school teacher. I was really disappointed because I thought she could be a good love interest. Her name in the show was Lavinia Brown. And Lavinia Brown, that's a great a great old-fashioned type of name. And it's not really old-fashioned, it's just that people don't really call themselves that anymore, as far as I know. It is sad to read that she died at age like 46 of breast cancer. So that was really unfortunate to find out, and the fact that she wasn't in any other episode. Because again, I was looking forward to that. I thought, oh, she's going to be like a love interest, and there's that other villain's like a villain who will return. No. But then, the very interesting thing is that there was another actress in the episode that they featured very equally to Sharon in terms of emphasizing her, and she is a pretty famous actress named Kathy Kirsch, and she was married to Robin from Batman. And let's talk about her, because I felt like with her came the most interesting things. So, she was in 13 films. And, wait a second. Yeah, see, right here they have in the trivia, in the early 1960s, producer Martin Rancid off. That's what I'm going to call him, Rancid off. He had plans to turn Kathy into a major star and signed her into an exclusive contract. The following year, he met Sharon, who he thought had greater potential than Kathy, and put Kathy on the back burner. The two actresses were cast together several times and had amiable relations without contention between them. But still, there you go. It's right there. See, I told you. It's pretty bad. I mean, that's pretty... I mean, you can tell. You could tell the whole episode. I could tell what was going on behind the scenes. I could tell. And so, not only was she in 13 projects, but the first project, I know this is going to sound like the most retarded thing, but it is pretty interesting, just in terms of, maybe it's a coincidence, who knows. I know that everyone loves coincidences because nothing can ever be deeper than just the most boring, establishment-driven explanation. But if you count up the letters of the first project she was in, which was the Lloyd Bridges show, you get the number 1 because you get 10, and so then you just have the number 1. And then you go to the last project that she was ever in, which was Gemini Affair. That had 12 letters in it, and so you take the 12 from the last project, and you take the 1 from the first project, and you get 13. And obviously Sharon's last project was 12 plus 1. So there you go. That's another thing to point out. And she was also in Beverly Hillbillies, just like Sharon. And she was also in the Americanization of Emily, just like Sharon. And she was another nameless broad who, I guess she's somewhere in the show. She was also in the Batman show, which I thought was interesting. And I thought, was she in the episodes with Jay Sebring? And no, she was not. And that was, that was like, okay. Well, at least they didn't go that crazy with the obvious signaling behind the scenes. However, they did go because I wanted to look up what is the... You have one episode where he was in it. He was in the show, and I found something pretty weird, to say the least. And so this is just a little side revelation. It doesn't have anything to do with the Man From U.N.C.L.E. or anything. But in this episode where Jay was in, you have one actress in the show named Sharon Winters, and instead of an R-O-N, it is an R-Y-N. and and you have a couple other characters here. You have Eenie, Miny, Mo, and another character, is played by somebody named Rick Roman. And what are the coincidences of that? Okay, so there you go with that. I mean, this is not about that episode, but I was looking that up and I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting. I see what they did there. So anyways, I thoroughly enjoyed the episode. It was so much more fun to watch than Ant-Man and the Wasp and Quantumania. And next month's project will be the Beverly Hillbillies entire series, which will be it'll be a project, that's for sure. That's understating things. So anyways, please like this video and comment. This was a very, very poorly, I would say, shot video because I didn't have any notes and I was just basically openly discussing with myself, out loud. But I did find a lot of interesting tidbits there and things for you guys to think about. So anyways, and it's sad too that Kathy was not made into a bigger star, because I would say that both of them should have gotten the opportunities together. I mean, they're both pretty equally good in this one episode, if we're just going to talk about their performances in this episode. So it's too bad. And anyways, please comment and tell me what you thought, and then subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more of these investigational videos, these analysis videos. I know that a lot of people will probably watch it and roll their eyes and shake their heads and pretend like I'm a crazy person, but I don't really care because it's the truth. And so anyways, goodbye everybody. See you soon.